All right, guys, it is Wednesday night. It's been a couple of weeks, but we are back with another episode of Conversations with Cougars, and I've got a good one tonight. One of the best athletes to come through Dothan in the early 90s. He was an Achilles heel to Northview High School. Of course, I'm talking about TD, Tony Donaldson. How you doing tonight, bud?
Hey, how's it going there, Dave? I'm Robert. I'm sitting here thinking about your brother, man. How's it going there, number? Everything good? Can you hear me?
I want to make sure that you and I are straight. David is the youngest one.
Yeah.
Robert is the middle one. I'm the best one, Bernard.
Look here, man. I don't screw that all the way up.
No, we're good.
Man, listen now, Bernard,
hey.
And I've been talking to you now for a couple of weeks now, man.
That's right. We're all good. And you know who already says hello is Eric Easy E.
Easy E. Hey, how's it going there, Eric, man? Y'all got me on here. Y'all got me all nervous. I told you I was nervous, man.
You're not nervous. We got Harvey Sniper Flowers in the house. They're rolling in for you, TD.
Okay.
Guys, if you didn't know Tony back in the day or didn't get a privilege of watching this multi-sport athlete, he was a sight. He was number 1 in football, jersey number 20 in basketball, jersey number 11 in baseball. And every time Northview played him, Northview knew where this man was on the court, on the field, on the gridiron, wherever it was. And from 90 to 94, he was a multi-sport varsity letter winner, went on to Troy, and he is back in Dothan. If you have not tuned in to his radio station or seen his photo booth business, you're missing out. I'm so glad to have Tony on. Tony, that was a little bit of an intro. I want you to tell folks, what is it, and this is where we're going to start. What's it mean to you to come? You came back to Dothan after college. You've got your business, your life, your family. Everybody's in Dothan. What does it mean to you to be from Dothan, Alabama?
Oh man, Dothan is home, man. You know, I said a long time ago when I left, but I was never coming back to Dothan. I tell this story a lot. I was never coming back to Dothan, and I tell you, man, I ended up here after I graduated. I ended up had a clothing store here, so I ended up eventually moving back to Dothan, and I've been here now since 2003. And you know, like I said, Dothan is home. I love it. You know, I try to do different things in the community based wise, and you know, like I said, Dothan is home, and I wouldn't rather be anywhere else, man.
Were you born in Dothan? Did you grow up like your elementary years and middle school years in Dothan as well?
Yes, born and raised. I was actually, I grew up on the west side over there. The bottom is where 901 Walnut Street was where I was raised at over there. And you know, I went from there then we moved down around the corner to OCO Street, and then to North Herring. I think maybe the second, third grade, I was at North Herring, and then we moved over on the south side over there, so to say, over by Wiregrass, and that's where, you know, my middle school and high school years were over on that.
Where did you go to middle school, Tony?
On Carver, Coach Billy Ricks.
And depending on the year, Carver at different years was zoned either for Dothan or Northview, depending on the year. When you were coming through Carver, was there any doubt that you'd be going to Dothan High? Or was there talk that you might be a Northview guy?
No, actually, I think maybe my 5th grade year is when they changed the zoning around that 5th grade year. I think we might have been at over at Grandview, and then they sent us to Stringer Street.
Yeah.
Went from Grandview to Stringer Street. So we went from Stringer Street to Carver. Now you tell that story, but now we went from Carver. That's where you know all the change came up. Once we got to Carver, you know, I had classmates. You know, a lot of them, Isaiah Reese, William McKissick. You know, a lot of those boys we played with at Carver. You know, they was on Northview. You know, so they went Northview and we went Dothan High. So it was, you know, a little bit change up there.
Well, I was going to say all through the mid 80s through the mid 90s, during that time period, that happened to a lot of years of guys who played at Carver. You may have played together 7th and 8th grade, but that didn't mean 9th grade you were going to be together. A lot of guys split. But speaking of Izell and Grandview, I know you know what's going on over at Grandview. And just a little shout out, a little plug to Izell. He's got it going on with that NFL, with the touch football that he's got going on. I really hope that folks who don't know what he's doing, get into our Facebook group here, go read about the awesome things he's doing for the kids of Dothan, or just go right out to Grandview and see what's going on. There's some artificial turf fields. They're going to be having games, and Reeivice is doing so much good for the city of Dothan and giving back to the community. I love it. Love it.
Oh yeah, yeah, oh yeah. Isaiah, a good friend of mine. He's definitely doing some good things here in the city.
All right, Tony, let's talk about, let's stick in the elementary and middle school years. You played all these different sports. Did you have a favorite sport, or was it the sport of the season was your favorite sport?
Growing up, I have to say that basketball, just like most kids, we're a lot more comfortable going out playing basketball. As ironic, I just made a little Facebook post here a couple of days or so ago about that, the basketball and difference in height and all that other stuff. That's a whole nother story. But basketball, and it's in middle school, I had a coach, actually it was Brian Hicks, a teammate of mine, Brian Hicks' dad, Coach Hicks. He told me not to put all my eggs in one basket. I was on the basketball. I was, big in that basketball, and but basketball growing up had to be my favorite sport though.
All right, sticking in that age group now. I don't want to come into high school yet. I want to stick in that middle school time period, Grandview and Carver, that time period. Did you have some favorite pro athletes or college athletes, or even high school city of Dothan athletes who really caught your attention and you pattern your games maybe after their styles? Anybody catch your attention?
I wouldn't say that. I tell you, I was going back to Carver. Coach Billy Richards was my coach at Carver. I remember we went up to Auburn. He took me up to Auburn one Saturday, and I think maybe Teapot Brown might have been on the squad then, and I know Alex Thompson was on the squad then. And I remember going up then, so I always, was a fan of those Auburn. I was an Auburn fan growing up, ironically. But as far as just a favorite, I can remember back younger days, watching some of them guys, and man, it was amazing. Things they were doing out there. I just, really didn't think I really just patterned. I just had a love for the game. Just a love for the game.
It's really so funny that you bring up Teapot. I'm not a fan of Teapot Brown.
Oh, really?
At all. No, I'm kidding, but I'm still trying to get him on the show at some point. But Tony, he hit me harder than I've ever been hit, middle school, high school, or college. When we played Dothan High my senior year, I threw a pass to Chris Holmes, bounced off his hands. I can't remember who intercepted it, but the ball was lateral to Teapot. And I was the last guy between the goal line and Teapot, and that just a train coming down the sidelines. I don't think he even knew he hit me, but I ended up past the cheerleaders, and oh man, it was horrible. I still have nightmares. Teapot was a fantastic athlete back in the day. He really, really was. And he's a good one to keep after, that's for sure.
Oh yeah.
Who were some of your growing up buddies in the neighborhood? Who'd you play sports in the neighborhood with? Who were some of those guys?
Well, we had a little running crew, neighborhood-wise. For a little while over there, it was Isaiah. Before he ended up moving over there by Carver for a minute. And then, we had normal kids, Mark Armstrong, Bobby Brown. We stayed at. By the time I made it over to Mobile Street over there by Wiregrass, man, we stayed. I tell a story, man. We get off the bus. I just catch the bus right there at the pool. We get off the bus. I go home and I do my little homework, eat my peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and I walk to Wiregrass, and we stay there every day till 9 o'clock, till they kicked us up out of there. And we go home and I eat a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and go to bed. So we pretty much stayed at the gym, man. Wiregrass was our second home.
One of the beautiful things about that center is for so many decades, that has been such a great haven for kids after school to find a safe place to go. Hopefully there's some adults there organizing, maybe some days not, but you had a place where you could just go and hang out with your buddies and not get in trouble and just play some sports. And I want to take you back to that time period. How quickly from getting home to getting that homework done to eating that peanut butter sandwich, would it take you to get over to the facility to go hang out with the buddies? How
I mean,
quickly? would you get that
by
done?
4 o'clock, but by 4:30, we hitting the door up. Yeah, we definitely trying to be there. Like I said, we had some competitive games off in them, man. It's just, everybody, we would go there after school and shoot ball. Everybody loved to shoot basketball back then. You sit there and wait on you down. Hopefully you win. But we had some good days off of
Well, I was going to say, and did y'all play where the winners just kept playing?
Yeah.
And you had to beat the winners to stay in.
Right.
And I bet you had a whole bunch of guys trying to play each afternoon. I get it. Now, did you have a group of fellas that you always played together, or how did y'all divide up the teams?
It was pretty much, it wasn't just a certain group. Now you would get with certain players and maybe stay up all day, but you had a lot of those older guys that would come through there, man. They talk a lot of junk and, get mad because us young boys are running them off the court. Yeah, like I said, we had some good days. We had some good days. It wasn't, you get them certain ones. You get Marcus Langston, Otis Deary come through there. Josh Dunlap. We had, like I said, we had some pretty good hoopers back in the day, man. They come through. Everybody used to come through. I remember Shane Clayton. Used to be the time Kevin Jackson used to come through. We had some good battles over that wide grass.
Well, I was going to say, Tony, that there's not only is there some serious athletic talent coming through there, but the fact that you guys played so often together by your senior year. How many seniors were on your senior team in basketball?
We had 12 seniors my senior year.
I mean, that's unheard of, even for 6A basketball at the time, to have 12 seniors on one team. And we're going to get to that in just a minute. But you guys were laying the groundwork in 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grades that later on you were able to come together as a group your junior and senior years. Tony, let me ask you this. You're coming out of elementary school, you're getting into Carver, you're starting to make your name in your sports. And you're playing football in the fall, you're playing basketball in the winter, early spring, and then baseball. And were you able to practice one sport while you were finishing the season of another? Or did the coaches just know, hey, I got to finish football season before I get into basketball and then into baseball? How did that work for you?
Yeah. At the early age, the season really don't overlap like that. Especially citywide. We was blessed with a good program here in the city, and but all of those would you could have one season in before the next. Now you ran into that issue once you got to high school, but the early ages, one season would end before the next one would start.
Now, and we're going to get to high school in just a minute, guys. I'm talking with Tony Donaldson, 94, graduate of Dothan High, just a fantastic athlete back in the day, and I bet he's got some moves still these days.
That's over, man. I'm washed up.
No, you're not washed up. It's just our bodies won't do what our minds think that we can do.
Yeah.
But Tony, in middle school, when you're playing against the other teams in the city, guys who are living in the different wards and the different parts of the city, you're playing, I'll say basketball. It doesn't matter what sport. You're all playing for that city championship. Had you already identified athletes on different teams that you knew to now becoming your rivals? They knew who you were, you knew who they were, and y'all were going to compete. Whether you ended up both at Dothan High or Northview, that remained to be seen. But did you have rivalries like that in middle school?
Oh yeah. We had started developing by then. We ran it my seventh grade year. I played 7th grade basketball. We won the city with that. I played 7th grade football. We won city championship. So we won football and basketball in 7th grade. Now, by the time we made the 8th grade, those boys over there, Gerard, had loaded up on us. And Jay Hornbuckle and Otis Deary and Marcus Langston, some of them boys over there. I think they went undefeated. Our 8th grade.
I wasn't setting a trap, but I was going to say, Brother David, he was like the 13th guy on a 14-man roster. He was on that Gerard team.
Yeah, and it stuck. Yeah, man, they had we had won everything, and we had won everything in 7th grade, and Isaiah played with us that year. Then, like I said, 8th grade, Gerard came back and snatched it all back from us. Snatched it all. Yeah, they had a nice squad that year too, man.
Well, and I was going to say that then set the tone for your high school years.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, you see these guys growing up. We all had it. I had the same guys, my rivals back in my day. We all do. Dothan's not that big.
Right.
What you don't know, though, is before you get to high school and see who shows up, at least back in the day, now they know just because of social media and all that. But back in the day, who's showing up for ninth grade football over at Dothan High? Man, I didn't know that guy was zoned to come over to Dothan. That's awesome. Or vice versa. But now let's get into Dothan High and high school. You entered high school in the fall of 1990. At the time when you're in seventh and eighth grade at Carver, had you been in contact with Coach Golden or Coach Collins or Coach Devane about their different sports and them wanting you to play with their teams?
No, I hadn't been in contact with him when, like I say, Coach Golden pretty much, just growing up with Kent. You know, I had been knowing him since I was 11, 12 years old, if not earlier, as well as I think Coach Addison. I can remember Cliff Mendham. Cliff Mendham sat on I slid in at home one time, All-Stars. I think I was 12 years old. We were playing there right there behind Dothan. I think American League, Dothan American League, Doug too. And I slid in at the plate and Cliff Mendham sat down on my ankle. And of course, sprained it, nasty sprain. Of course, my mama take me to the doctor, to the hospital, and what they do, they throw a little soft cast on it. And I remember Coach Addison telling me, no, you don't ever go to the hospital. They ended up cutting it off. He ended up cutting it off for me. And I hobbled through the rest of the All-Stars. We were lucky to win and make the sub-district, but I hobbled through the rest of the All-Stars with a banged up ankle. So I was familiar with them, but we hadn't really discussed it. I think maybe the eighth grade, maybe I came over a little bit. And I was fortunate enough to play varsity football in the ninth grade. But I don't think it was anything that we just, discussed prior to it.
Well, what about some of the older guys in your neighborhood who were already at Dothan High playing sports? And you could throw out some names if there's some guys who were there who maybe you're trying to find out from them, what's it like playing on the varsity? What's it like being at Dothan High? And this is when you're in, say, eighth grade, because I always looked up to those guys. I wanted to know what was what before I got over there.
Yeah, I had, which right up the street from me, man, one of my best players, Michael Marsh. He was an offensive lineman. He had played at Carver. I think I was younger. And he was in the eighth grade when I was in the sixth grade. And so he was pretty much playing football at the time. So we talked every day. He was like a big brother to me. We pretty much talked every day. So I was a little somewhat familiar. I had an older cousin, Joe McNeely. He was a senior, maybe my eighth grade year. That was class with Janaski and all them. So we used to talk about, different things, but that's about it right now.
Now, is he related to Bruce McNeely?
Yeah, they are. Bruce, your classmate?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
Bruce. Okay, now Bruce is my first cousin. His dad and my mom are brothers and sisters.
Bruce, good dude growing up. Now, let's talk about academics. Let's talk about mama and academics. What was it like in your household about the emphasis on if you don't make your grades, you're not playing your sports?
Right. Well, I don't know. I guess I was blessed, man. I really never had any issues grade-wise, academic-wise. I was an A/B student pretty much. I think I had like a 3.3. I think I took my ACT maybe my junior year, sophomore, junior year. I think I made a 20 on the first time, and I never took it out. I never took it again after that. So
I was going to say a 3.3 and a 20 gets you into D1.
Oh yeah. I was pretty much. I joke all the time. I think I had my senior year, man, right coming up right. I think I might have had 2 office aide jobs. Classes, 2 as office aide, just trying to get up out of there, man.
Man, you ate lunch for 3 hours every day. We know that.
Yeah. I was lunchroom aide for 2 years. Now they used to get mad about that.
All right, I want to talk about that. Back in the 80s and 90s, the Northview standard lunch. I want to compare how it was at Dothan. The standard lunch was those rectangle pieces of pizza, French fries, and 2 different types of lemonade, either pink or yellow.
I don't know. I don't really remember. All I know is that I held the line my junior and senior year. I was a lunchroom helper, so I got 2 meats, a honey bun, and a juice after every day. So that's what I know about mine. So I don't know what everybody else would do, but that warm honey bun. That warm honey bun, used to sit up on top of the thing. They used to be pretty good there.
Wow. Well, guys, I'm talking with Tony Donaldson. He graduated Dothan in 94. I want to welcome Jason Mullins in the house. Hey, Jason, good to see
Hey,
you, buddy.
Mullins, what's going on, man?
And Jason's a big supporter of this show and of our group, and always has some great comments in there. And we're moving into your ninth grade year. We're getting into Dothan High. Had you been to the school, physically been to the grounds before you actually entered school over there?
No, I don't think I had been over there like that. I rode by just being in the neighborhood over there, growing up on the south side. But as far as I wasn't familiar with the school or anything by the time when I got there.
Well, and this may be a silly question. Were you intimidated at all about going to such a big school, a big campus, if you will? It's one thing to go to your middle school or go to your junior high school or elementary school, but you're a ninth grader. You're probably what, 13 or so, and going over to such a big campus, did that even phase you back in the day?
I mean, it was, the typical freshman, man. It wasn't something that you were worried about, but at the same time, you understand you was a freshman, and being an athlete, I tell you that helps a lot. I can remember trying to run from them guys my ninth grade year from getting dumped in that thing. The little thing that we had back there. They used to try to dump the freshmen back there in the ditch. But outside of that, man, it definitely helps being a good little athlete.
I'm so glad to hear what you just said, because Northview had a drainage ditch behind its baseball field, and that was an initiation for the baseball team back in the day.
Okay.
And that ditch or that little creek was the nastiest. I don't know what the runoff was, but you did not want to get thrown into that. But TD, I got some names here that you may recognize. Damon Glasgow says to tell you hello.
Yeah, tell Dirty Dang, I say, what's going on?
And Miss Shirley C., who said you may or may not know her, but she sure knew you. Shirley was at Northview for many, many years as an administrator and really is the memory of Northview, but she knows you from back in the day about sports.
Okay, hello, Miss Shirley.
And let's see who else we got here. The names are they kind of scroll through too fast for me, so sorry if I miss anybody on here. I'm talking with Tony Donaldson. Tony, what was your best sport? Not your favorite sport, your best sport growing up?
I would probably say football. I would say football. I was pretty decent in baseball, but if I would put probably more emphasis in baseball, I'd probably been a lot more successful in it. But I think probably football. That's what luckily able to go continue my education with football. So
and we certainly are going to get to Troy State in a few minutes, but it's one thing to have God-given skills, and you clearly had those. But athletes, to be successful, can't just rely on what God gave us. We got to work at it. We got to put in our time, whether you're in the weight room, the classroom, or on the field. Nobody likes, well, I shouldn't say that. Most everybody does not like to practice. Were you one of those guys, or did you look forward to getting out there and mixing it up on the practice field?
Oh yeah, I didn't mind. Yeah, I didn't mind practicing at all. I just love those moments, man. So I was a practice guy. I didn't slack. I can remember, going back to Carver days. They would tell you to slack off, because you're going so hard, and you try to make deals with certain people, don't hit you and all the other good stuff. But yeah, practice wasn't. Well, I didn't have an issue with practice, so to say.
I had a feeling you were one of those kind of guys, because those are the kind of guys that ultimately, to me, the most successful. I did, and were the best teammates. And the reason why I say that is it's the enthusiasm that you brought, and it's natural. It comes from within. It's not created by a coach pumping you up. It just comes from within. It's your personality. And you're going to, as a leader, and you playing from ninth grade on the varsity football wise, people are attracted to that, because ultimately you get some of that success on the practice field, then onto the games. And let's talk about that. Let's talk about some success. Let's talk about some failures early on in your high school career in football. Do you remember and you don't have to come up with specific games or things if you don't remember it, but we learn a lot, Tony, from our successes, of course. The best players learn from their mistakes, learn from their losses. That's how you build yourself. That's how you get better. Which stands out more for you, if any, the successes or the failures, the losses, the things you didn't complete goal-wise?
Well, of course, it's always things that, other things you could have done. But it stand out as far as failure. One thing I think is ironic on the Northview show right now. I can remember my sophomore year. I think that was Kevin. I think Mothers might have been on that squad. Was Mothers 91? Mothers 91 or 92?
Mullins,
anyway, it was
92, weren't you? Go ahead.
Yeah. My sophomore year, man, we were. I felt like we were a whole lot better than Northview that year. And we were tied up right there with like a minute, a little bit more than a minute going into the half. And they made I'll never forget, they had a little dump. I don't remember who the tight end was. They hit a little dump, hit the tight end across the screen, across the middle there. And they outran the defense, man, for about 50 yards. And it shook us up right at 7-0. It ended up beating us 21-0 that year. And I think they had a pretty successful run. I think that might have been, I know that was the year that Kevin ended up blowing his, I think he blew his knee out that year. But man, that game there, was an album because we really felt that we were better as we were loaded. We had Joe Jackson, Chris Cummins. We had a nice squad that year.
Yeah, you guys had some talent, but you're so right. And let's talk about the rivalry for a few minutes. Obviously, it's like Alabama-Auburn. It doesn't matter to me. It doesn't matter what your record is. The teams are going to come to number 7 just joined us. What's up, Kevin? How you doing?
Yeah, what's going on, action?
Says to tell you hello and a shout out to Kevin. Just got inducted into his junior college's Sports Hall of Fame. What an awesome honor.
Congrats again on that.
And your roommate, the superintendent of Ozark City Schools, has just entered the chat.
Reeivice. What's going on, Reeivice?
He says, "What's up, room dog?" The rivalry. One team could be 0-10, the other team could be 10-0. They could both be 5-5. I don't think that most years, not all years, Tony, most years it's not going to matter because you guys have grown up together. You are mostly friends off the competitions. But when it comes to strapping it on, it doesn't matter. You're going to give 100%. He's going to give 100%. Did you love those games or did you hate those games?
No, you got to love those games, man. It was, the rivalry game, Northview, like I said, it doesn't matter what the record was. Everybody was coming to play. They had a little thing in the paper. I remember back in the day, they used to, go around and talk to the different players and they get a little smack talk and going right there the week of. And man, no, you, like I said, you wouldn't, if you couldn't get ready for a game like that, then, you deserve to play.
I was going to say, if your blood isn't boiling and if you're not pumped up and ready to play, then you don't have any business playing, because those are the games that are the memory makers. They really are. I want to say hello to Kevin Christopher, who just joined the chat. Hey, Kevin, thanks for coming on, bud. Talking with Tony Donaldson. We're in the early 90s. And just like you were 4-0 in basketball against Northview, Mullins wanted to remind you that he was 4-0 against Dothan High in football his years. So it goes both ways.
It goes both ways. It does. It does.
Now, and I'm putting you on the spot because you're in the Northview room.
Okay.
Did you ever have a desire to join our side of town?
Never.
Our high school?
Never. I can say that. I bled. I still. It's a little bit different now. We changed up a little bit, consolidated. But I bled the black and red, man, red and black. You couldn't get me a Cougar. You couldn't get me a dang Cougar. They couldn't get me the coach over there North back. No.
That's so funny because there have been a lot of guys who played sports and went to one of the high schools and ended up coaching at the other high school. Janansky comes to mind. Kevin comes to mind. Other guys have played at one and coached at the other. But here's another thing. Like my dad is a Dothan High grad of 1960. But all three of his boys went to Northview, and he followed where his boys were. He roots for Northview back in the day. How can you root against your own blood? Even though you have the other school.
Yeah, as you get older, man, the rivalry dies a little bit. I must be honest about that. I've been coaching Little League football here for several years now, man. And I can remember years where I would go to the game and, I'd make a joke, tell them I'm sitting on the 50-yard line because I got former players on both sides. So, so I've been just, that rivalry thing, I made a little joke now, but it's, that rivalry thing is pretty much died with me. It's all good on this side.
Let me ask you that, Tony, with you being in the radio business, I want to talk a little bit about current times. I know I'm kind of skipping around, but you, with your profession being in radio and you're in the city, in the public a lot, this will be the 4th school term, I think, since 2018 that there's been the combined schools. And a lot of people, and I'm not here to be negative, but a lot of people were upset. Both schools that did not want the consolidation, didn't want them to end up at the Northview property and what all happened. A lot of people were for it. I'm not here to debate that. What I want to know is, what are you hearing from people our ages about the rivalry that was? It's no longer, because we're all Dothan now, and like your shirt shows, Dothan Wolves. But do people look back in fondness? Oh man, in the good old days, we had awesome rivalry, or is all of that kind of died down?
It depends on what their view was of the consolidation. Some people were for it, some people weren't. A lot of time, a lot of people today here in the city really can't identify, don't identify with the Dothan Wolves. You hear them say, I'm a Dothan Tiger, I'm a Northview Cougar. So that's the thing. A lot of them haven't really, not really identifying with the Wolves. And so that's the biggest thing. I think the biggest difference right now is, we're trying to do more of a, we need to get more of a, one Dothan type thing where, everybody's, behind the Wolves more so than still stuck on the Northview Dothan thing.
And as time goes on, Tony, I know that's going to happen. With us only being in the 4th year or the 4th school term, plus COVID didn't help things with the last couple of years. But I think as time goes on, it becomes one Dothan mentality. I get that, but the old heads and the people older than me who are a little butthurt about all of this, they're just going to have to just deal with it. And then I'll get off my soapbox. And I want to go back to the high school days. Famously, I was asked to retire after 9th grade basketball because I was such an outstanding basketball player, of course. My coaches all sat down with me and said, we think you need to rest between football and baseball season. So I got the hint and I rested. You, my friend, were talented enough to keep playing through. Now, here's my question. When you're 15, 16, 17, and 18 in high school, we're invincible. We can do it all. That's what gives you your confidence on the sports field.
Right.
I can beat that dude. I don't care what his rep is. I'm faster, I'm stronger, I'm better, those kind of things. But here's my question. How did you keep, because you played all sports all through the year, you kept up your academics, you're a leader in the school, but sometimes that gets to be tiring and you don't even realize it. How did you keep playing each of those sports on the level that you could and have that success throughout? And I really don't know how, or I guess I didn't ask it the right way, Tony, but did it even dawn on you of how much you're doing throughout the year from an athletic, academic, and social standpoint?
No, honestly, didn't. When you're young, like I say, you think you're invincible. I mean, we just like to compete, and I think that's what's missing. Like I said, I do the little city league. I've been doing city league for several years here locally. I think that's what's missing today. Not only in the young kids, but oftentimes in high school kids too. They're afraid to compete. And I think that's the thing that that kept me. Like I said, my freshman year, I played freshman basketball my freshman year, and we went undefeated in basketball. We had a heck of a team, man. And like I said, we used to go out there. You have to come to practice to compete, man. And like I said, we get out there and try to do your best. Football, of course, playing varsity football. And I was lucky enough to play varsity baseball as well my freshman year. And, them being the only freshman on the team, some of those guys, Wayne White and I think Riley Reynolds, Henry Callens, all of them were, seniors that year. I was pretty much just out there just competing, man, just trying to find my way at the time.
You get through your senior year, Coach Blakeney's at Troy State. He is an established coach, great program. They had just won, I think, the national championship maybe 2 years before you got there. I can't remember.
Yeah, they were a few years. Yeah, they were back a few years.
Because Doug Mims from Dothan High, who was my class year, and Willie Banks, one of my teammates, they were teammates together on that national championship team. I'm not sure what year, but you're going up to Troy. It's not like it's sleepy little Troy anymore. Let's talk about that decision, because I know you were getting recruited elsewhere. How did you end up at Troy? How did you end up rooming with Reeivice?
Oh man, it was I don't know. I didn't think I was going to end up at Troy. I can remember basketball. Joe Jackson, who was my fullback, had graduated my junior year. Mm-hmm. I remember I don't know if you know Coach Wayne Boat from Troy. Big Boat, we used to call him. I remember he came down, they assigned Joe in football, and he told me, Donaldson, I'll be back to get you next year with that old raspy voice. And I laughed. I was like, there's no way I'm going to Troy. But I ended up, laugh. I verbally committed to Georgia Tech. The weekend I was up there, they hired a new offensive coordinator in Boston College. He ended up getting snowed in some kind of way, so he didn't make it my weekend. So when I get back, he comes in and ended up grading a receiver or something out of the Atlanta area, and they ended up offering them instead of. So it was last minute right there, and that thing, just trying to sign with everybody like everybody else. I had a couple of offers on the table. It was getting close to signing day. And me wanting to sign with everybody else, like everybody else, I went on to sign with Troy, but I wouldn't change it if I had to do it.
The fact that Troy was only an hour away, was that also a factor?
Oh yeah, that and like I said, Leonard Shaughnessy, he was a senior with me as well, and both of us, he and I both signed with Troy my senior year, and we already had Joe Jackson up there on that end, and like I said, Reeivice Girtman, he was up there. It's different people. I think Tracy Donnell, different people from Dothan that was already familiar with, that was already up there.
And was Richard Shaughnessy the strength coach at the time?
Yeah, Shaughnessy got the strength coach. He got the job, I want to say my freshman year. Richard got the job.
Yeah, Richard was 2 years ahead of me at Northview, and we played ball together. I don't know if you knew this. He was a heck of a pitcher. He was a junk ball lefty pitcher, and was really effective back in the day. Tony, let's talk about the transition going into college football. It's one thing to play wiregrass 6A ball, some of the best in the state. But now you're playing with the big boys on the college level where everybody's got speed, everybody's got strength. When did you get your footing or your confidence, or did you ever lose it about playing at Troy?
Well, you're just trying to define your way once you get to school off and not really knowing what to expect. I signed as a slot receiver, and I got up to halfway, through my redshirt freshman year, and I decided I really, I like to have my hands on the ball. I was more of a running back. And I talked to my coach, Coach Turk, and he moved me back to running back. So I ended up redshirting my freshman year. But by next year, man, I was, pretty much, playing, giving some playing time and all that good stuff. So,
what about those crowds compared to the Wiregrass high school crowds? Where was the biggest? Did you go to Nebraska, for example? Did you play in some of the big conferences?
No, I didn't. We didn't play Nebraska. I think they probably started playing Nebraska after that. I remember the trip we went to Montana in the playoffs. I think my redshirt, so Montana, and they were so cold up there, man. And I can remember we scored first. I think Pratt Lyons got a pick six the first thing, and the crowd went hush. I think we ended up getting beat like 77 or 77. It was ugly, man. That was like one of the worst. That was an experience going up there, man. We were pretty decent. But that was my redshirt freshman year. Then we came back my redshirt sophomore year, man. We were like, I think number one ranked in the nation, going into the playoffs in Georgia Southern. I think Georgia Southern came and upset us, man, at home, second round of the playoff that year. I think we might have been ranked number one in the country at the time.
Tony, you get through school. Now it's time to move on to the next phase of life. And I always ask this, at what point did it dawn on you that my organized athletic career is coming to an end and it's time to move on to the job? It's time to move on to family or whatever else was next. Do you remember having those thoughts in your head? Do you remember thinking, man, it's my athletics career for organized is over?
Well, you know, at some point you have to come to that realization. I think for me, it was more of a mutual agreement between me and, you know, I think it was time. You know, my senior year, I ended up spraining my ankle like the fifth game of the season. I was inactive for the rest of the season. I tried to make it back for the playoff game. I just had never healed on me. And I just think, man, by then I just, you know, I think it was just time.
You know, it's kind of bittersweet if an injury ends a career, but the fact that, and it's not easy to swallow because you want to see if you can get back to that peak performance level and make it another go and contribute and have some success. But it's also, when I say it's bittersweet, in that when you realize ultimately it's just not in the cards, the more you fight it mentally, the tougher it can be on an athlete. But once you realize what it is, I think it allows you to transition
Right.
to whatever the next step is. Now, here's a question I've got for you, Tony. We're getting close to the end of our conversation. I'm so enjoying listening and learning your journey. What does the current version, the current Tony Donaldson, say as advice that you wished you could have given that 17 or 20 or 23-year-old Tony Donaldson?
Slow down. Just slow down and, you know, and take it for what it is. You know, enjoy the moment. You know, and live. You know, I think a lot of times, you know, we forget to live a lot of times. And, you know, running through school right there, you know, had a little spot, a little rough spot right there for me. So I think that'd be the main thing. Just slowing down, man. Just live. You know, and enjoy the moment, especially athletic wise. Enjoy it. Enjoy that moment.
Because at the time we're going through it, those days are never going to end in our minds.
Right.
Those days will always be, now they'll always be there in your mind. That's why we're talking about stuff like this tonight, to kind of bring back a little bit of those memories. But you're so right. Those years, those 3 or 4 years we're playing varsity sports in high school, those 3 or 4 years if we're lucky enough to play on the next level, and then those rare athletes who get to play in the professional level, that's just a small sliver of your entire life.
Right.
And I think that's so wise of you to slow down, appreciate it more, soak it in a little bit, because I think it's the rare athlete that at the time you're going through it, you can do that. Because, you know, today's athlete, it's like a goldfish attention span. It's like every 2 seconds. What's next? What's next? It's the mentality, Tony, of the instant gratification because of these things, because of the phones. But we didn't have those back in the day.
We didn't. And everything has changed. Everything has changed with that social media and everything, man. But look at me, everything is for attention now. So, you know, you don't know if things are genuine or what the deal is with it. So I agree with you 100% on that.
What did it mean to you? I asked you at the beginning about Dothan, the city, representing and living in your hometown. What did it mean? What does it still mean to you to have represented Dothan High School back in the day and even now as a proud graduate?
Oh, like I said, man, I love Dothan High. You know, anything I can do to help, I try to do, you know, what I can do. So it means a lot. It means a lot.
Well, guys, I brought a tiger into the house. I brought him into the Cougars den, and he has survived. And as he always
made it through.
does, He has
Made it through.
He's made it through. And Tony, it's conversations like this that I love on Wednesday nights. That's why I've been wanting for many weeks, as you and I have been talking, to get you to come on, to share your story, because we've only had 2 Tigers to come through. And both of you guys were so very fast back in the day. Dennis Tillman, of course.
Oh yeah, DT.
But I want to thank you for spending time with us. You need to get into these comments. I couldn't even get through them all because they were coming on too fast. You got all kind of love for you in these comments, Tony. So when we get off, I want you to go check those out. Guys.
I will do, man. Appreciate you having me there too, Bernard.
Oh, my pleasure, Tony. Don't go anywhere just yet. But as I'm trying to get these built back up, guys, I'm going to be bugging those of you who are in here tonight who hadn't been on the show. I'm looking for more Cougars. Maybe an occasional Tiger. We'll switch in there every once in a while. But keep coming back on Wednesday nights. You guys continue to be safe. We'll catch you hopefully next couple of Wednesdays coming up. Y'all have a good night.
Good night there.